Hey guys, thank you for joining us again at Car Systems Installation. Today we're going to show you our G-ON Infrared camera. So we've seen the G-ON many times as a standard camera with the front and rear camera, but in this case it is the G-ON IR. So the IR is the second camera. Instead of being in the rear window, it is an infrared version. The infrared version is meant to be installed inside the vehicle facing the back, usually for passengers, for rideshare vehicles and stuff like that, taxis and Ubers and Lyft. Now we're going to show you how we're going to run the camera. So in this case we're actually going to mount the camera on the top in here. I'll show you in the video after where it's going to be mounted, and we're going to start with the installation. The front camera we're going to mount nice and clean under the bracket in here. As you can see, there's already some aftermarket camera installed in here. It's just mounted to the windshield with the connection to the cigarette lighter. So we're gonna ignore that one. We're gonna have ours coming with the hard wire, so it also gives us the parking mode and everything is run nicely. So we're gonna start by removing this cover. So every vehicle, the cover is different. This one is a full transit, so this cover actually two pieces slides to the side, so they kind of separate from each other. So you're gonna first take one side and slide it to the right. Okay, so as you can see, as I slide it to the right, it comes out on clipses, and I'm gonna start separating it slowly in here. Okay, I'll start with the separation slowly from between the two pieces. And we have the piece coming up. Okay, wasn't planned to have it flying, but just so you get an idea, you have the two pins in here. They actually go into the side, slide in. So the other side, now that this came out, the other side should just slide to the other side. Again, we have the pins, one on here, one in here, one in here. They slide and lock in place in this area. Okay, so this is for, now we have everything here exposed. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to remove the top piece in here. Okay, we're going to remove this to access where we're going to put the second camera. So this one also, there's a couple of clipses, so we're just going to push them down. Okay, so if you can take a look and see where you see the clips, it's easier. So you press on it. Press on the other side and it comes out. So again, you can see here the clips, you just squeeze it in. I'm using a plastic popper and comes out. We have all the access in here. So we're gonna have our second camera mounted on the top in here, visible to the back. I'm gonna run the wire nicely. We're gonna make a small notch in here to run the wire nicely so it doesn't get squeezed in. We're gonna run the wire nicely in here, and we're gonna follow our wire in here to run it all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then we're gonna go all the way to our power. In this case, we do not use fuse box connections. We do the installation by soldering the wires properly to the right location. This is the key vehicle, so we have a proper accessory and a power in the ignition cylinder. So we're gonna expose steering wheel in here, go to the ignition cylinder, and have it connected properly. So we're gonna continue with the installation. So first I'm gonna start running the wires. So as you see, everything is open, and we're gonna run the wires, and we're gonna get back to you when we get to the power section. Okay, so we've completed running the camera. I'm gonna show you just how we've done. So our camera here, the one who's gonna face back, ran it. This clips, it looks actually, it's not all the way, so this does not close all the way. We can make a notch in here, but it's not actually needed because there's no pressure on this wire, so I prefer not to do any notch in the plastic. Second camera in the front window, same idea. We went inside the factory cover, so that way it's nice and clean, no need for notching there. And now we're gonna start with the power. So basically we're gonna power up the camera. I'm gonna show you how we do it. I'm gonna take step by step, and we'll do different things to get the power for this camera. So we're gonna start here. First thing is gonna do, we're gonna remove this piece. This is a 4 transit. So we're gonna remove this cover. So this cover comes out fairly easy. You kind of lift it up. Whoop. Tricky. So he's a popper. Very simple. Goes up. Then we have 3 hidden screws in here. Those are number 7. So we're gonna use a drill. Okay, screws aside. Now we're gonna go to this section. So we have 2 screws in here. Just gonna remove the cover. I'm gonna have 1 screw. We're gonna have the second screw. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the next section. So under here, this is the cover under the steering. Just gonna pop it out. Just comes out to the clips. Okay, this comes out, and I think that's all the screws we have. So now we're gonna remove this piece in here. This piece, after I remove all the screws there, this piece will come out towards us. Okay, we have the switch here for the light, so we're gonna disconnect it. And we have another switch here for the rear view, for the side mirrors. We're gonna disconnect that one also. The side, I'll put the switch back in so we don't lose it. This part is done. Now we have the BCM in the back in here. This will be for our main power, and we also have the accessory. Accessory is in the ignition cylinder. So we're gonna open the cover in here, access the ignition cylinder. It seems like there's a Torx, 2 Torx screws. Now we also have the OBD in here. A lot of people take the power from the OBD for the main power, which is fine for the dash cams, as the OBD is covered by 10 amp, and while nothing is connected to the OBD, that 10 amp is pretty much empty. And when something is connected for the scanners, for example, is a very minimal draw for the camera. Okay, so we have that out. I'm just gonna see how it opens in here. So this is just a tab. Screwdriver. Now when you do that, just be careful not to break the claps and anything. We have just a tab in here, so the tab is just going to be released and the cover will come down. Now in here we have the main harness. Now this harness is also has a positive power, which gives you it's 15 amp. The thing is, with the positive power in here, with its 15 amp, it still runs other stuff. So that 15 amp is used for other stuff. So you can use it for dash cams. Dash cams don't take much power, but preferably not to use it and reserve it only for what it needed for the ignition cylinder. So I would either go to the BCM main power, which has about 50 amp, and if not, I can go to the OBD, which gives us also 10 amp, but the OBD has no draw on it while nothing is connected there. So we're gonna go here. So we're gonna use from here, we're only gonna use our accessory, just to indicate key on, key off for our dash cam. let's check the wire. Okay. I'm gonna quickly check my schematic and see which wire is our accessory. Okay, so based on our schematic, the purple green here is our accessory. So we're gonna expose the wire. When I expose the wire, I'm making sure I'm not too close to the connector. So if I break the wire, I can always fix it easy. Okay, so I have exposed in here. I already ran the dash camera wire, as you can see, is already here. So I'm gonna route it nicely. Now make sure when you route stuff that you don't have any interference when you're locking stuff back, because if you're gonna have anything getting squeezed, you're gonna have damage. So in this case, I noticed that if I put it here, it won't get squeezed, but I like to route it around. So I'm just gonna release the bolting here. Quickly put around it. And that's it. So see, now the wire is completely hidden. Okay, goes in here, so nothing will squeeze it, nothing will damage it, and just a simple removing the screw, moving this plastic in here, and let it round nicely. Again, something you might do a few more minutes of work, but when you do it properly, you will not have any issues in the future, because if you squeeze a wire, it might damage the camera, it might create a short or something else. So we have that here. So now we're gonna make our plan. So we're gonna see. So I have the accessory in here. I'm gonna extend the wire. I'm gonna follow the factory harness. The reason you want to follow the factory harness is because the steering wheel has movement in and out, up and down. So the factory harness is meant for that, which means it have enough slack. So when you follow it, even though you give more wire, when you follow that slack, it will let the movement be easy. If you don't follow that slack, as soon as you're gonna have the wire or the steering wheel moved, you might break a wire. Now for the ground, we have a ground spot in here. So you can see two original wires. So this is our original ground spot. So we can either tap into them, but if you don't have an accessible original ground spot, OBD pin number 4, it's ground. It's the best ground you can find because it's ground to the vehicle directly. So OBD pin number 4 is usually what we use for ground when we don't have an easy access. You can always also drill into the body with a proper screw, or make sure you put a washer to make sure the screw doesn't get loose with time. I don't like using, I've seen a lot of time people putting that on, for example, on this screw, and this screw sits on the plastic. Now this screw, yes, it does connect to the vehicle body, and by having that connected to the screw you get some ground, but you still have the plastic kind of as an interference, so it's not the best way. This screw, for example, it is connected directly to the body, it's metal on metal, so this will be perfect, but it's pretty big screw. There's no reason for us to open it when we can drill here, or we can use the OBD, or we can use the factory ground. Now for the positive, we can take either, like I said, from the OBD, we have a covered by 10 amp, or we're gonna find the main BCM power. So I'm gonna check where is it, how easy it is to access. From what I'm seeing, we have the connector all the way inside in here. So it's not that hard to access, at least not for me. So I will access that one. We can see it there. Okay, the yellow and blue red. So I'm gonna start by extending my accessory wire. So I'm gonna start by extending my accessory wire. So I like to extend to have enough wires. I don't like stretching too much. I like when my fuses are all in one place, so I extend the wires that I need. So let's bring wire. So when you extend the wire, you want to use the same gauge of the wire that you're extending for, not extending from. So even if this one is a let's say 14 gauge wire, but you're extending that for a 25 gauge wire, you don't really need to have a 14 gauge wire. You don't need thick, so you can use the same gauge as the source that you're extending for, not the source that you're taking from. Okay, so we're gonna put the wire in here. We're gonna solder it. All my connections are done by solder. That way you make sure nothing will ever move. When you solder, we have to make sure that your solder is very hot. We don't want to have what we call the cold solder. Cold solder, it sometimes appears that it was soldered, but if the solder wasn't hot enough, it's actually kind of sitting on the surface, and it's not gluing the two wires together. So I'm gonna tape it. I'm gonna use a black tape. Now you can cut the wire and solder one side and solder the other side and put a heat shrink. So basically supposedly the best way is cut the wire and use a heat shrink. The only thing is, when you cut the wire with the factory wires, you shorten. So if you don't cut all the wires, you just cut one, now the wire is gonna get shortened because you have to expose it and connect it. So now you're gonna have a situation like this. So you have a few wires long and one wire short. It's not good. It doesn't look nice, and you don't want to cut all the wires. And also, when you cut factory wires, you might have some issues. If ever there's a problem in the cylinder, they're immediately gonna create an issue for you. When you just tap into it, you're not gonna have the same issue, because you can remove the tap, you can even remove the soldering and tape it, and it's almost like it was never there. So I'm gonna tape it nice. Now here we can tape the wire along. Just gonna follow the factory harness and see where it start going to the other side. Okay, so I'm gonna give myself enough slack, and I'm gonna tap into my accessory wire. Now I chose the red wire in this case, and a lot of people, there is different color codes. So in this case, our accessory wire from the camera is red. So I chose red to red, so that way if I ever need to follow the wire after it's all taped and closed, I know which wire does what. Try not to mix wires and put the yellow on the red or red on the yellow, or different colors completely, as when you need to follow the source. If something doesn't work, it's easier for you to follow the source when you know the color that you are looking for. But if you extend it with a different color, you start searching for what was it, where was it, how was it, stuff like that. Now I'm gonna connect our ground. So the ground, you have a few options. You can use the ring that comes with it. I don't like, because this is a fork, it's not a full ring, so it might come off. So I cut that one. You can expose and solder the way I did with the accessory. If you have an access to a nut, a screw or something, you can put a full ring and connect to it. So I found here the main ground wires, which I really like, are very thick, and for me they are fairly easy to access. I'm gonna show you them again. We have the wires in here. Okay, so we're gonna expose one of them. The wire is exposed and the other wire is on top of it. I'm gonna solder the wire to each other. Okay, taped. Okay, so we have that soldered. So the last wire that we have left is the main power. Now, when you solder accessory, key is off, there's no power on that one. When you solder the ground, same situation, doesn't have any power. When you solder the positive has power constantly from the battery. So you either disconnect the battery and work easy, or if your battery is still connected, which again for dashcam cameras installation you don't really need to disconnect the battery, just make sure that when you expose the wire and you solder to it, nothing is touching metal, you're not touching your solder wire and the positive at the same time, no shorts or anything, because if you fry a fuse, sometimes it takes a lot of time just to find it. Okay, so let's go and see. Our main power is inside here, a bit tricky to access it. So let's see here. Okay. We can unplug it. Bring the harness a little bit to us. So the harness has some clips and everything. So just bring the harness to us. Just to make it easier to access. I'm gonna expose. Okay. So this is our yellow red, it's 60 amp, so it's very good for our dash cam. More than enough for any dash cam and other accessories sometimes. Okay, just goes in here. Okay, as you can hear, our dash camera turned on as we gave it main power, and this dash camera works while the vehicle is parked. Okay, we're just gonna we're gonna solder that wire. Now since I don't have a lot of access there and I don't want to touch any ground by mistake, so I took just a piece of my solder, and that will be more than enough for me. I'm gonna put the hand inside. Do it with two hands.
Records in parking mode.
You can see the GNET is already recording in parking mode. Just gonna have this one a little bit more accessible.
Start recording. Records in parking mode.
Okay. Okay, so we have our positive connected, soldered, and all done in place. Take this. I'm gonna take a piece of tape. Sometimes you need smaller hands. This is one of those times. It's okay. It can work. Again, if you find that it's very hard for you to access that, you can always you can always go to the OBD main OBD power, which is 10 amp, and also in this vehicle the cigarette lighter is also constant, and the cigarette lighters are usually covered by 15, 20 amp, depends on the vehicle. Sometimes I even seen 30 amp. So just go to the back of the cigarette lighter wiring, solder your wire into it, just extend it. And this is pretty much all the installation we have for the dash cam. Now all we have to do is neat up a little bit, clean it. I'll show you how I clean the install, just in regards to mounting and everything. Just plug this back in. And that's it. I'm gonna plug it back in our ignition. Back in. Now, see, this wire is kind of loose, so you can zip tie it. I like looming the wires, so I'm using this loom basically to make it a nicer look. Also, less chances of if something does get squeezed, it less chances to damage the actual wire. So my trick of looming, I start from a point, from the far point, and when it's already soldered, connected, then I kind of have like a counter. So I pull the wire and it's my counter, and I just slide the wire in, slide the loom all the way. If it gets stuck in something, you just release it a little bit, and as you can see, our loom arrived to the other side, nice and clean. After we have the loom in place, that is good. So that one is for the main one. As I said, I'm going to start following the factory harness. I'm using some zip ties. Okay, got the tips. And that's it. Now here, done. So we have everything there, nice and clean, zip tied, nothing visible, and this is your whole dash cam install. For more videos, subscribe to our channels, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.